growing popularity of veganism in recent years has meant that vegan food is no longer the dull bowls of salad that people might have thought of in the past. A whole variety of exciting, diverse and delicious restaurants have been flourishing in many places. But in Korea, despite having Buddhist heritage in its past, vegan food has been somewhat difficult to come by. Step-up chef Lynn Ahn, who, along with two colleagues, started Soshik restaurant in Seoul last year, serving vegan dishes inspired by Korean temple food. And I'm delighted to say that she is here with me now for our Touch Base in Seoul segment today. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Hi.
Hi, so Chef Lynn, just tell us a little bit more about yourself. How did you get interested in food and how did you become a vegan chef?
Actually, I started learning cooking when I was very young, like not professionally, but because my parents were working parents. So I had a lot of curiosity in food and my refrigerator. And my mom usually tried to feed me eggs with butter, but I hate it, and I started to cook it by myself in 10 different ways. And I think that was the start of my cooking.
How old were you then?
Like kindergarten, yeah.
Okay.
But like I tried with salt and ketchup and scrambled and omelette, deep fried, and like I tried to make it tasty to myself. Like rather than eating like just food feeding my stomach, I tried to like make myself happy, and I think that was the start of cooking. And all the way to my 20s, I have gave myself a serious thought about food and how it affects brain and obesity. You know, in Korea, many people are interested in diet and making ourselves thinner. And I realized how our mental health is related to our food and our lifestyle. And then I started to study philosophy in food in master, which was at the Durham University.
So Durham University in the UK.
Yeah, that was my master, and I tried to look up the philosophy about food and the process, and shockingly, I realized the process was not quite pleasant. So I started to look up like organic animal-friendly farms, and the slaughterhouse was not very happy, but only better than the normal farming.
So until this point, you were still eating meat, or were you already?
I loved meat.
Okay.
And I loved meat. That's why I started looking up the process of making meat. And but at the same time, I was like very sensitive to humans and humans' rights and environmental friendly stuff. And I realized there was so much pain to the animal as well as our health and the environment because of the greenhouse gas and methane.
So you discovered like the process of creating meat was
as well as like plants. I realized the planting is like very cruel. Same to the animal and the plants. So like there's monoculture. So like just planting the same variety.
So that's when you decided to become a vegan, is it?
Yeah, and then I realized the relationship between our food and humans was not just product or consumption, but I realized it was a precious relationship that impacts our environment very closely. So I realized I should stop consuming food like a just consumption process. Yeah.
So you discovered this as you were studying in Durham in the UK.
Yeah.
That was a few years ago, I understand. And then you decide to come back to Korea, and then you decide to open up a restaurant, a vegan restaurant. So that was last year. Can you tell us the process, how you got to that?
Actually, I went to Korea and tried to give a lecture to people and talk about what I learned in my master. But I realized it's not very persuasive. It was just politically correct, and it was not very coming to their mind.
Right, right.
And I realized when I cook to them, they are more understanding the process and the philosophy behind it.
Because I mean, in Korea, everywhere it's so much meat and everything we eat. The understanding of vegetarianism and veganism is just not widely understood. I remember my foreign friends telling me who were vegetarian who'd come to Korea and they'd be like, "Can we get this dish in vegetarian?" And they'd come with like chicken, and they're like, "Chicken is not,
Yeah, chicken is not meat."
not in Korea apparently.
Yeah.
So it must have been quite difficult for you then when you came to Korea to try it in that environment. But you're saying through making the food, they started to understand the process better.
Exactly.
And then from there you decided to open a restaurant, you're saying?
Yeah. Like I started to make a party without any salad. And Sosik is also a restaurant that doesn't serve that much greens. It has a lot of greens, but greens are not main.
Right.
Like, there are so many hard vegetables that can be served as mains. And I wanted to change the prejudice about vegan food and plant-based food.
Can you tell us a little bit about the name, Sosik? So in English we'd say Sosik, but then in Korean it's Sosik.
Yeah.
What's the meaning behind the name there?
Many people think Sosik is small food, but it's actually the white food. White, the Chinese letter behind the so is hilso, which is white. So Sosik is white food. The same as sobok, which is white clothes. People wear sobok when they want to clean themselves, and people in Korea has been eating sosik as a cleaning themselves, which means the food and meal without meat. So sosik is actually vegan. The meaning of the sosik.
Okay.
Yeah, but it has two other meanings. So it has 나물소, which is vegetable so. So I hope people eat hundreds of different 나물 greens, local greens based in Korea. And also I hope people to laugh a lot when they eat. So there's 웃음소, laughter소.
Right, okay.
So 소식 means vegan and local greens and laughter.
So multi-layered meaning to the name that you obviously thought a lot about. But also I wanted to ask you about, because the fact is the food that you serve is inspired by temple food, I understand.
Exactly.
Were you always a Buddhist before? I mean, how did that decision come about?
Exactly. I am not Buddhist, and I am not related to Buddhist religion. But I love the philosophy behind the temple food. It was exactly the same philosophy that I learned in my master. Because in Buddhism, they think all the creatures are very precious and we need to respect them as same as the human. And through that, I realized not only animals, we need to respect the plants as well. And each plants, they have different characteristics, and Buddhist temple food really highlights those characteristics. So I felt like in Buddhist temple food, it's a relationship between the humans and food. So I love the temple food. And as well as that, Korean temple food is actually very similar to Korean food, but the vegan temple food is like a vegan Korean food.
Right.
At the same time, temple food is like many people in UK and America love Korean temple food because of Jeonggan-nan. And they have a fantasy about the Korean temple food. And so I thought Korean temple food is something that I am very interested in. Not only that I am used to it, that I can reinterpret it with the new knowledge that I got from Italy and Paris and America.
Right. Because you went to school, as you said, Italy, Paris, and I understand you learnt a bit in the US as well for the food. Yeah. So using all that, How did you build the dishes though? So, you went to a temple yourself, or was it just from your knowledge of what you know about Korean food that you were able to build your menu?
I realized Korean temple food is like a really Korean food without meat and
Right.
several like garlic or stuff. So making Korean temple food was not that difficult, but reinterpreting them was a challenge to me because it took time for me to think about how to plate it and how to give different flavors that is Korean at the same time, not so Korean. So I usually spend my whole time going to farmers market in Korea, like 가락시장 and many local farms. I contact them to see what is the local vegetables and how to use them, and looks like a very
That's
how
the
to
thing
say,
about
yeah.
that's the thing about Korean food. I mean, when I was younger, looking at Korean food, there was so much vegetables. Of course, there's a lot of meat as well, but that's mixed in with a lot of vegetables. So I actually didn't like Korean food that much when I was young because I didn't like vegetables. So I think doing that leap from like Korean food to vegan food is not that big actually. I find so there's a lot of potential. I feel. When you opened your restaurant, when you serve your dishes, what was the response like from the people who came, the people who ate it? Was it things that they seemed were familiar, or was it quite different for them? Was it?
I think the main customers are youngster for
Okay.
Sosik, and many Korean people doesn't think this is Korean food that's familiar to them.
Okay.
I feel like they feel it's curious. It's like stimulating their curiosity.
Right. Okay.
I'm not understanding their mind so well because like it's Korean food to me, but for them it's very new food. It's vegan first of all, and how it's plated,
Right.
it's very Western.
Right.
But the flavor has a lot of 간장, soy sauce, and doenjang, soybean paste. So they are familiar to it, but how they eat it and how they experience it, it's not Korean. So I think they are like interested in how I plate it. Yeah.
Do you want more like older, perhaps Korean people to enjoy your food? Do you think more traditional people who might not, as you said, mostly younger people right now? But do you want to kind of expand that further?
Nowadays the main people are youngster, but like nowadays, like just yesterday, like main customers were like over 60s, and I realized that they enjoyed it quite more than I expected. So I realized it can be targeted to a bit more traditional people. But at the same time, like some traditional people, there is an expectation about temple food, like 조개종 food, or like the food they eat at temples. So I think their expectation is a bit different. Some people think our Sosik sells 팥죽, which is red bean soup, which is very 인사동 style. But like our Sosik is in 해방촌, HBC, which is very different from 인사동. So I think their expectation is a bit different. But at the same time, after getting well known a bit, they are like more accepting our concept.
Okay. What's your plans for the future now? The restaurant's been open 1 year. Moving ahead, looking to the future, what do you want to achieve more? And what do you hope for vegan culture in Korea?
Truly, I want them to experience more plant-based meat, first of all. But my hope in future is like more, I hope Korean people get to know more Korean namu, local greens, which is much more variety than any Italian herbs. And the taste and flavor is much strong than other like basil or parsley. So I hope people to get more friendly to their herbs, as well as our Sosik's future is actually at the New York or LA. We want to open
okay.
Sosik at LA and New York.
So big plans ahead. Well, Chef Lynn Ahn, it's been great speaking to you today. Chef Lynn Ahn is the owner of Soshik Restaurant in Seoul. Thank you for coming in. Hopefully we'll get to talk to you again next time.
Okay, thank you.